Hello, this is Kevin from AMT Software, and in this video I'm going to go over some tips and techniques of working in the 3D view. Specifically, I'm going to go over the View Cube, which is new in Prospector 2016. I'm going to go over the trackball and how best to use that feature. I'm going to talk about the mouse wheel. If your mouse has a wheel, most do now, how you can use that to pan and rotate and zoom in the view. I'm going to go over a couple of shortcut keys that can be used to also zoom or pan. And finally, I'm going to talk about some settings that are specific to the view. So let's get started with the View Cube. The cube has two parts. It's the cube and the arrows around it. And let's start with the cube itself. Each face of the cube has 9 hotspots, and when I hover the mouse over, you can see where they are. It highlights the area, the hotspot, and the main one is the center hotspot, and it's the largest one. And when I click on that, it takes me to that view, just like the standard views here. I go to the front. I can click on the front, and it takes me to the front view. The other hotspots, they're 4 edges, and these are on all the faces, any face, top, front, left or right, bottom. If I click on that, it takes me to that edge of the cube. I'm looking down that edge now. So the clicked on the edge between the front and the top, but now I'm looking down that edge. And when I hover over it, you can see that it highlights both on the top face and the front face, because either of those will take me to that same edge. So if I click on the top right, it'll take me there, and again, it highlights both hotspots on the top face and the right face. The last 4 hotspots are the corners, and this will take me to an isometric view around either the top. So I've got the 4 isometric views on the top, or the 4 isometric views on the bottom. The last thing I can do on the cube itself is dynamic rotate, and I do that by right-clicking and holding the right mouse button. Right-click and hold, and now I'm rotating the model. I could do that, rotate, right-click anywhere on the cube, and it rotates the model. This works a lot like the trackball if you're used to doing that. Just like with the standard views here, these views on the View Cube are dependent on the setup. So if I were to change setups, set as active, now it's showing me the top for that setup, the isometric view for that active setup. The arrow keys, the arrows, they are dependent on the view and not the setup. So when I'm in a view and I click on one of these arrow keys, it's going to rotate about the view axis. So if you imagine, the horizontal axis of the view, we got a vertical axis, and then an axis coming right in and out of the screen. The top and bottom arrows will rotate around the horizontal axis. So when I click on those, 45 degrees about the horizontal axis. When I click on the left and right arrow, it rotates about the vertical axis. Again, it's totally dependent on the view. And when I click on the upper right and upper left arrows, it rotates around the axis coming out of the screen. So about the z-axis of the view. Okay, so that's the View Cube. Let's move on to the trackball. The trackball has been around forever, and it has several hotspots. It has 6 hotspots, and then one giant hotspot, which is the ball itself. The axes hotspots are the circles here representing the axes, and this is the again dependent on the setup. So when I see this x-axis, it's the x-axis of the setup, y and z. The tip of the axis, if I right click and I hold and then move the cursor perpendicular to the axis, I can rotate around that axis. So I'm rotating about the x-axis of this setup. And the same thing with the y. Again, moving the cursor perpendicular to the axis. And then z, I'm rotating about the z of the setup. If I right click and hold on the base of the axis and then move the cursor parallel to the axis, I can pan along that. So again, it's just limiting the panning along the axis, X, Y, or Z. The last small hotspot is the center circle, little diamond actually, that when I right click and hold, now I'm just panning anywhere. I can pan around the view. This is again dependent on the view now. And of course, the last thing I can do is anywhere else in the circle here itself, right click and hold is now dynamic rotation, just like the view cube. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about with the trackball is the position. When you turn on or enable the trackball, it always centers it in the model, in the view. So no matter where I'm looking, it's going to be centered. Back to an isometric here. Now, if I want to change that, I want to put that specifically somewhere so I can rotate about a specific point. I hold down the Shift key and left click on an edge of a surface or on a profile, and it will position the trackball to that point wherever I click. So now I'm rotating about that corner that I clicked on. It's Shift and left click, and you can do that anywhere on any surface or profile. Okay, let's move on to the mouse wheel. The mouse wheel can be used to either zoom, pan, or rotate, and then specifically what keys are held down when I'm doing the mouse wheel. Without any keys held down, I can zoom in or zoom out. And it's about where the cursor is, where he zooms. So I want to zoom in, pull the wheel towards me to zoom in, or away from me to zoom out. This can be changed in settings if you want to reverse the zoom wheel direction. Different CAD applications and CAM applications have their mouse wheels oriented different. So if you are used to a different orientation, if you want to zoom in or zoom out a different way, this just reverses that direction. So instead of pulling towards me, now moves the model away from me, zooms out versus zooming in. Okay, that's zoom. Now if I want to pan, I can hold down the Shift key and move the mouse wheel, and it pans left or right. Again, this is view dependent. It's dependent on the view. If I want to pan up and down, I hold down the Control key, and that will pan up or down. And that setting that reverses the mouse wheel will also reverse whether it's left right or right left, or up down or down up, depending on which way I move the mouse wheel. The last thing you can do is to rotate, and I can rotate about X, Y, or Z To rotate about X, I'm going to hold down the Alt key, and now I'm rotating about the X-axis of the view. Again, this is dependent on the view. If I hold down the Alt and Shift keys, it goes about the Y-axis. Let's go into a better view here. So now it's going about the Y-axis of the view. And if I want to rotate about the Z-axis of the view, I hold down the Alt and the Control key. Let me go into another view here. Alt and Control. And now I'm rotating about the Z-axis of the view. The next thing I want to go over is the short keys that can be used to zoom and pan. The Z key will zoom in, and that works about the center of the view. So no matter what view I'm in, Z will zoom in. Shift Z, or capital Z, will zoom out. So zoom in, Z, zoom out, Shift Z. These are exactly the same as these two icons here. To pan, I can use the arrow keys on your keyboard, left and right. Arrows to pan left and right, up and down arrows to pan up and down. Lastly, I'll talk about the C key, the letter C, as in cat. You can use that to center the view at the cursor. So wherever the cursor is, if I hit the C key, it will become the center of the view. C. Okay, the last thing I want to go over are some settings that are specific to the view. We've already talked about the reverse zoom wheel direction, which will affect any of the mouse wheel, zoom wheel settings. And the animate, which is new in 2016, animate view transitions. When I enable that, and then I click on change the view, you notice that there's this nice smooth animation to go from one view to the next. It's pretty handy, it's pretty cool looking. The only thing you don't need to worry about there is if you have a large model, or if you, more specifically, if you have a large cutter path loaded, it might be a little bit too slow. So use that wisely. Okay, that's it. I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions or comments, please email us at support@amt-software.com. We'll see you in the next video.